Hey guys, welcome back. Now we're actually into our college spotlight segment. Um, yes, we are actually hitting up Kansas City's running back Devin Neal is who our college spotlight um, prospect is for this week. Since unfortunately did not like get a poll up this week. We had a couple options and I was going to get that up, and so it was kind of my fault. So I'm sorry, guys. We just so Eli just like we'll just do this guy, and I'm like, all right, sounds good. It sounds good to me, and we'll tackle this guy, and we'll see what our overall thoughts are on this guy.
Yeah, Devin Neal from the Jayhawks. Rock, Jayhawk, rock. You know what? Their program last couple, this year they've been competitive, man. Like they've hung in the Big 12. They were ranked for a while there. So and then uh, knockdown drag-out game against Kansas State this past weekend, and this guy was a big reason for that. That game was so good. Had 138 yards, 3 touchdowns. This is probably his best game of the season, honestly. But yeah, Devin Neal, he's projected to be a 6th-round pick. I didn't find anything on PFF. PFF is what I've been using so far for all these spotlights that we've done. But he wasn't ranked in the top 250 with PFF, which was surprising. So I went to a different source, and NFL Draft Buzz. I like them quite a bit as well. They have him as the 172nd prospect, or 72. Sorry, I'm dyslexic. No, and then the 17th ranked running back, which sounds about right. Having a damn good season. I think it'd benefit him to stay another year and see if this Kansas team can kind of, with Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12, to see what they could do. With him at the head of the table again, and maybe come back next year, try to win 10 games. Try to get into a better bowl game, or maybe even make the college football playoff, the first 12-team playoff possibly, which would be crazy for Kansas as and kind of as depleted as the program's been. But he's going out. He like me and Jay were saying off the air, he's got over 500 carries on his body throughout his college career. So it's time to go make that money. And I would use Dameon Pierce just as his comp, just where I think his production could be. Obviously, there's a lot of these guys that are third-day picks, 4th, 5th, 6th round, that end up starting and having good, productive NFL careers. Usually the elite guys are taken, in the 1st round. If you think about, recent memory, like Saquon, 1st-round pick, CMC, 1st-round pick, Zeke when he was in his prime with the Cowboys, 1st-round pick. But a lot of these, lower round guys, they're cheap. You can easily plug them in. Charbonnet, second round pick, A-Chain, 3rd round pick, just a couple guys that have popped this year, just rookies recently. So, even the kid from Washington, Rodriguez, we just talked about another 6th round pick, on the show earlier, Chris Rodriguez from Washington. Like there's I think with like the burst that he has, he doesn't really have a third gear, kind of just your basic, running back, doesn't, not the greatest blocker, not just a guy you can hand the ball to, go in there, kind of a third, I'd say on a good team, like a third back, starting out and then working his way up where, maybe he could get, 800-900 yards in a season, you never know, in a couple of years. So I would say like that's his high end, but what he's done at Kansas, just last season had, almost 1,100 yards, had, over 6 yards a carry. This year he's really popped, really excelled, had a few more yards than last year. Obviously one less game. They still got another game to play. The rushing average is up. It's close to 6.5 per carry, 13 touchdowns. 3 of them just came last week against Kansas State. So yeah, he's really. My sense is I kind of look at a couple different factors. I look at like, oh well, this site says this, or I think that everybody's going to have their opinion on comps. I'm not reading off of some pre-existing thing. It's just when I was watching YouTube highlights, what I've seen of him. I watched some big, we're Midwest guys. We see quite a bit Big 12 football, especially on Fox or any channels like that. So we saw the Texas Kansas game, and obviously K-State last week, Oklahoma, Kansas, the big upset Kansas had over OU earlier. So he's been some top against top competition, and which is a good thing. Being from a program like this, sometimes you don't know if you're at Liberty, like the feature back at Liberty, you don't know how that's going to translate to the NFL. I think a Big 12 running back that doesn't have the greatest offensive line, they don't get big giant offensive linemen or talented tackles at Kansas. They just don't. That's they all, if they go to the Big 12, man, they go to Texas or OU, so they don't have the greatest amount of talent there. I think he's been a big reason that they've kind of had a surprise season. But yeah, just based on the size, weight, 40 time, it's very, very similar to a guy like Dameon Pierce. And just with the level, the skill, kind of the skill set, I would say. So Dameon Pierce was the closest guy that current guy that I found that maybe production and where it could end up. I don't know. We'll see what Jay's got to say about old DEVIN NEAL.
Yeah, quite honestly, it was slim pickings because just trying to honestly just trying to find any information or any stats on him overall in the country, how he stacks up with the rest of these guys like Ollie Gordon and what just all these other guys. You think about it, this the kid from Georgia State, Carroll, he's even he's actually you can find his stats what he is in the country, and I'm like,
Carroll's another good one.
Yeah, it is, and for me to not come up with anything where he's actually ranked and whatnot overall, which is surprising. Usually the site I actually go to is the college nerds or whatever heck it's called. They usually have they actually do 120 or some odd people where they list everything, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna type in DEVIN NEAL and see where he's actually ranked at, and there was absolutely nothing. I'm like, how in the hell is this guy just void? Which is crazy enough for me to think. Actually had to go to a couple different sources here. Actually, I mean, fantasy wise, I mean, if you're playing fantasy football wise, I mean, he's actually 11th overall in fantasy points wise. I mean, if he does come out this year, I mean, this guy could be a viable second. It could be a number 2 running back. But in the Big 12, he's actually 3rd overall in fantasy points in the Big 12. But I was actually taking a look at how he actually came to be. There was actually a couple other notable teams that were actually interested in his services. Kansas State was one of them, Iowa, um, Oklahoma State, Nebraska was another one, and he decided to land with Kansas because I'm sure, I mean, with Iowa or the Cowboys, they had Ollie Gordon there. Iowa State, Iowa, I'm not sure who they had there, or the Cornhuskers. I'm sure they had some guys there that probably didn't fit where he wanted to go to actually get a lead, get an opportunity to actually be an elite, a lead running back and stuff like that. But
I was going to say quick, Jake. K-State had Deuce Vaughn. Your boy from the Cowboys, Deuce Vaughn was at Kansas State. He was probably taking up a spot there, and he's from Lawrence. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but he's a hometown kid, so that that ended up working out well.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure he wanted to stay probably wanted to stay in the Midwest more than likely. I mean, I was actually, here's another cool thing too. I was actually looking at just Big 12 stats in general, his rushing yards, just with him in the Big 12 in general. He actually was in 2021, he was 9th overall with 707 yards. Then he actually went up, to, in 2022, 1,090 yards, which was 6th, or I mean, fifth. Sorry, fifth. I was looking at my wrong statistics here. And then in 2023, he had for this year 1,103, which is best for fifth overall. So I mean, for him in the Big 12 conference in general, as far as running backs, I mean, he's been a top 10 running back in their conference. So I mean, you would think this guy to have some notable notes with just overall with with him kind of being involved with some of the other guys, but I'm sure with Ollie Gordon being in the Big 12, he's being overseen with his radical year what he's having right now too as well. But yeah, we mentioned earlier before the show, I mean, I was looking at his rushing attempts too as well. I mean, he's had 500 and some odd attempts on his body already, so with him being bruised around here a little bit too as well. But rushing touchdowns, he's pretty much been in the top 10 all of his 3 seasons when he got there with Kansas. 13 this year overall. I mean, double digit touchdowns this year, just the way Kansas City has been coming around. I didn't really watch much Kansas, but maybe I'll try to take a dive and try to watch a Kansas game this upcoming weekend and kind of see what he does. But I mean, overall, they're kind of expecting let's see, with projection 4th to 7th round guy here, in this upcoming draft. You mentioned his rank with 117 or 17th overall in the RB section, and I was actually looking at they had that Marine. I think he was a guy from Arkansas who was ranked higher, and then I noticed he got bumped down quite a bit this year. Just he was probably going to be a first round guy, so maybe he didn't pan out from Arkansas. He's been dropping like a fly. Overall, just some pros and cons with him in general here. I mean, he's pretty good in the passing game. I mean, this guy, the way Kansas offense has been. I mean, Neal's actually good in the outside of the, outside the tackles. I mean, he's kind of like a Deuce Vaughn a little bit. He likes more playing in the outside role. I mean, that's where he does a lot of his pass catching and swing. His a lot of the dump off. That's where he's good at. I mean, that's where his visions are at when he gets off into those side games and stuff like that. And he's really good at misdirecting defensive players, making these guys miss. He's very shifty. I mean, he can go one way, and then all of a sudden he's going back the other way and making people miss. So I mean, he's good at that. He's a good pass protector too, as well, with his size, and strength as well. Then he's also a patient runner too, as well, from what I was seeing. He take a little time to kind of make sure, when these holes open, then he just darts through them, which is a good thing for, something like that, being a little bit patient instead of an impatient runner. Once you see those holes, I mean, boom, with his speed he has, I mean, it's great for him in general. And once he gets to the open field, I mean, that's where he's good at. Once he gets cut loose, I mean, he's nimble. I mean, he's got what it's got to get there. But as far as the home run juice, I think he lacks that just a little bit, because I mean, he can get to that second gear, but trying to get that home run, it kind of hurts him in the long run. But if he actually has some blockers out in front of him and stuff like that, that's what's going to help him out. Especially with lacking that third gear to him, if he's got some outside help, that's for sure. Other than that, that kind of wraps up what I kind of got on DEVIN NEAL overall. So
and just to follow up on that, I see a little Khalil Herbert too, and he was actually at Kansas. He was Kansas back before he transferred. So maybe they tried to recruit somebody just with their system, like kind of the similar type of back. But yeah, he's got from what I've seen. Chicago, being kind of deceptively shifty. So yeah, he's got a little Khalil Herbert. Like I mentioned, Dameon Pierce earlier. In terms of like a team or teams, he could possibly end up with. I've seen mock drafts anywhere from like the Bears to the Raiders, And
Yeah.
maybe he's Khalil Herbert. He replaced Khalil Herbert at Kansas. Maybe he replaces him with Chicago too. Who knows? Or the
Yeah.
Raiders. He might be. I think that'd be a good situation because their backup they took. I haven't been impressed with. Is it Zamir White? I'm trying to think of the Raiders running back.
Yeah, I think Samir
I
White.
think it's Zamir White.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, Josh Jacobs is the feature. I mean, he's an elite back. Josh Jacobs is the feature guy. But I think he'd be a nice backup. He'd be with the Raiders. Being a second or third back with the Raiders, I think that'd be a good landing spot. Is there any teams you can think of off the top of your head that could use Devin Neal?
I mean, if you think about it, if Mixon sticks around, maybe the Bengals, Buccaneers could always need some help with the running back situation down there.
Yeah, definitely. Especially after not getting Michael Carter.
Dallas is in need of some running backs. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing him coming down to Dallas at all. I mean, that wouldn't be a bad backup. I mean, if we're gonna let go of Pollard, so I mean, I could see this guy coming in and being behind Rico Dowell or whatever, so I mean, and he could probably outplay Deuce Vaughn, so I mean, he's kind of like a miniature Deuce Vaughn, a bigger role of what Deuce Vaughn is really. But I mean, other than that, I'm trying. Those are just some offhands. I mean, I think we could probably dig into some more teams that probably are really running back needy, So I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more teams out there we could probably think of that probably could, I would hate to say the Browns, I would hate to see anybody go in the Browns that are just a dysfunctional like organization that wastes money on a quarterback that, save some of that money. You could have, you could draft a Devin Neal or whatever, I mean, it's just garbage.
Yeah.
But
maybe as crazy as it sounds, maybe trade away Nick Chubb. If Nick Chubb is, this is his first major injury, but it's worth thinking about because they're gonna have to save money somehow. I mean, if he wouldn't go to the Browns, I mean, they're gonna pay all this money to Watson. They still got a bunch of guys on the defense that are coming up or getting paid. Myles Garrett, he's expensive. So yeah, they're gonna have to figure out how to save some money. So maybe he ends up in Cleveland and Nick Chubb is, and then they just do it by committee with Ford. Another year of Kareem Hunt, and then Devin Neal. That might be a good landing spot too. With that offensive line, they seem to know what they're doing with the running game. So
yeah, or I mean, the last option with maybe the Patriots head coach being out, and maybe
maybe McDummie's gonna be back. He'll be coaching.
But maybe the Patriots. I mean, they need some dire people up there, and I'm just saying in general with the head coach possibly being out. Maybe this offense will look way totally different. But hey, I mean, it just you just don't know until the off season hits. But this kind of wraps up our Devin Neal talk, and we'll be right back to wrap up our show, and then we'll just kind of hit some more reviews and stuff like that, some other overviews and whatnot. So we'll be right back in like 15 seconds.